What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. I thought I'd make this quick video just to help you with your senior design projects in the future. And so this video is about how to get second place in the senior design video competition. So, if you want to get second place, just follow this tutorial and you'll probably get it, which is pretty cool. So I got a lot of questions today about exactly how we made this video, and I just wanted to kind of walk through some different strategies and such of how we did it. The main thing I'm going to talk about is these renders here, because that's the thing I got the most questions about. So I'm going to kind of go through and talk about how I did it, and then talk about the rest of the video too. So these renders were actually made in Blender, which is a really cool animation software. I've been using this since like middle school, basically, so I'm pretty familiar with it. But more recently, just got into doing things with engineering materials, like making real machines in here and animating them and making them look good. So if you want to do this, I recommend using Onshape, which is a cloud-based CAD software. I actually have a video on my channel of how to export Onshape files, and you can even import from SolidWorks, is what we did here too. You can import your thing into SolidWorks, or import your thing from SolidWorks into Onshape, and then follow the tutorial I have on my channel about how to export it into Blender. So basically, you just right-click on the tab, but definitely watch the video. Right-click the tab, hit export as a collada, and then that'll give you a good format for Blender. But there's a bunch of other stuff in the tutorial, so definitely check that out. So I went ahead and did that for our machine. I imported that into Blender and did a bunch of stuff. The one thing that kind of helped this video out a lot was getting the materials and textures right. You can see on this machine, even like the side panels here, they have a lot of texture and wear and tear, and the metal looks really good, and same with the lighting. And I cover this in my tutorial too, but I like to use this thing called the Blender Kit add-on. It adds a lot of materials and different things that you can just quickly add into Blender. So for a lot of these materials, I just searched metal and I scrolled through the different metal textures, found what I liked, selected each of the objects, added them, and kind of grouped them together to make it look really good. So if I go into render mode here, it's gonna show the machine. This is some intense dramatic lighting I have on this one, but you can see how the lighting really makes it look like metal. And I used some of these metals, and then for a couple of them I had to adjust like the roughness or glossiness of it and the metallic factor, the little bit of the color as well. But for the most part, I just used the Blender Kit add-on to get these materials. Once I did that, I spent a lot of time on lighting. Lighting this machine is pretty difficult because it is metal, and metal is very reflective. It's very hard to get good lighting for materials like that. I ended up making this little scene here on my material scene where I was just having these spheres, and I was checking out the lighting with an HDRI in the background. So I had like this kind of metal, which is more of like an aluminum, and then this is our 3D printed plastic. These are the side panels, so it's clear. A different metal, I forget what I used that for, and then this one was like a stainless steel. I think I used that one for the screws and other steel components. So once you get that, you figure out good materials, you can figure out some good lighting. For the most part, I used a lot of point lights and area lights, and I'll show you in the final scene of exactly how I did it. But that's kind of the gist of just setting up the machine, importing it from Onshape, and doing this. The next thing that made the renders really cool was having this volumetric fog in the background of the machine. This is something I kind of figured out new for this project, and I was really proud of the way it turned out. I think it just adds a lot of depth and dimension, especially for a scene like this where there's one central thing. You don't really want it to be super busy. So I did this by doing a full fluid sim in Blender, and I followed this tutorial. I'll try to link it in the description if I can find it again. But basically, this tutorial had me do a full fluid sim, and I had the objects of the machine as colliders, so it wouldn't go into the machine too much. And I turned down the subdivisions here on this fluid sim, but I have the smoke domain, which is the area where the fluid can be. I have the smoke objects, which you'll see change here in a second. And then if I just run the scene here, you can see it's creating this smoke, and it looks super blurry just for preview state. I have it only at 16 for the real render. I used 256 subdivisions or resolution for that smoke sim, but it just added a lot of depth to the scene. And from this, I actually pulled out one frame from the fluid sim. These fluid sims, when you bake them, they'll make a little folder in your computer, and you can pull out I think it's called the VDB file. So if you go into volume, VDB, you can pull out one frame from this fluid sim, and you can easily add the fog in. I have a tutorial on my channel for this as well, for how to do the volumetric, just one frame. It's really useful and it speeds up auto rendering. The full fluid sim at 256 resolution was like 52 gigabytes or something crazy on my computer, and I did not want to have to deal with that every time I opened up Blender. So that helped a lot. The material for this was pretty unique. I followed the tutorial again. If I go into smoke domain here, it was just a white smoke and then a little bit of adding and multiplying for the density. And then obviously no emission, and make sure you have this density factor in the attribute thing. But other than that, it was pretty easy. So this one was just kind of like a test render for testing some different lightings, and then I eventually went into a different scene here. This one, I didn't really like the way I had those kind of sloped backgrounds on the other one. It was just kind of narrow and didn't really look that good. Even that's how a lot of my renders work, and it usually works pretty well for that. I ended up going for this more like industrial feel with this ceiling light here. Again, I found this on the Blender Kit add-in, so I was really happy I was able to get that. I think I went into scenes here or objects and looked up like ceiling maybe, or industrial. One of those. It's somewhere in here, but it's called Modular Industrial Ceiling. Imported that in, and it turned out really nicely. I ended up going in and changing some different things about it. One of the materials in here was the LEDs, and I ended up adjusting a little bit of probably the emission. Yeah, the emission, I adjusted the color a bit, made it slightly blue, turned up the strength to 100, and that gives some really nice kind of like soft glow background. If you look on the video, you can really see here, it's a slightly blue tint, which sort of illuminates the ceiling a little bit, and then provides a little bit of lighting to the scene as well, and some nice reflections on the machine. It makes it look really nice, and I was pretty proud of the way that turned out. If I pull up the render preview here, you can probably see it as well. I'm going to close the other Blender file because we don't need that anymore. But the modular industrial ceiling was really critical in getting this to look good. And then as far as lighting goes, I should be able to see it here. But I have a lot of area lights scattered throughout the scene. I always like to backlight my objects in the scene. It really helps bring out kind of like a dramatic look. And then I have a side light here, and then a little bit of a light here just to give some front ground lighting for when the intro happens, and you kind of zoom into the machine. I think this is the light, you can see it there. So when that happens, you also have I have a little back point light, which is just helping lighting things up a bit, but it ended up working out pretty well. So for the intro, I can follow the camera here. I did this with just keyframes, which is probably not the best way to do it, but I just went into different areas of the scene. I pressed I where I liked it, and if you press Shift tilde, you can actually move around like a first-person shooter game, which is pretty cool. I'm using WASD to move around, E and Q to move up. And then I'm going to hit escape to go back, and I just went to different portions of the machine of where I wanted it, keyframed it in, pressing the I button on the keyboard, and then went through different parts of the machine and kind of went through and did the thing. So that turned out really well. I also had an empty, which was controlling the focus of the machine for some of the scenes. I'm not sure if it was on this one. Yeah, it was. So this empty, wherever this one goes, it's where the camera is focused. So obviously here you just want it to be focused on the center of the machine, but then as it gets closer, I wanted to shift focus based on where things are happening. So it kind of followed the presentation carriage, but lagged a little bit behind just to make it a little more realistic. And then it eventually followed the blades out. Another thing to make it more realistic was in the compositor. I spent a lot of time on this, and this was something I kind of did new for this project. To make it a lot more realistic, I added some lens distortion, glare, and a little bit of film grain on it. If you notice, any point on the outside of the frame, everything's kind of distorted and skewed. This helped to make it a lot more realistic because it was able to cover up some mistakes and just kind of give some variance in every part of the machine. You can also see the film grain. If I zoom in quite a bit, it kind of looks like it's shot on film. There's a lot of noise. Normally in renders, you want to try to get rid of noise, but I added it back in just to make it more realistic. I probably could have gone a little bit less on the noise, but it ended up working out pretty well. And then you can also see the chromatic aberration from the lens distortion here, the dispersion. So you can kind of see like a rainbow effect as it distorts further and further. So you can see like the red, the green, the blue. And then the glare also really helped, which was this glare. I used the bloom. I think the default is streaks, but the bloom made it so that, you know, this green light kind of illuminated past the green light instead of just stopping where it is. And again, that worked really well for the other lights on the ceiling and overall made the lighting look really cool. Next thing I want to talk about is this animation for the blades picking up, which I'm really proud of. I thought it turned out really well and looks pretty realistic. The way I did this was I first started out by parenting all of the objects that move down in this suction cup assembly to the grabber base block. This was just going to help me later on so that I only have to keyframe one object. So if you look here on this grabber base block, I can right click, select hierarchy, and that'll show all the objects that are, you know, in this one thing. Once I did that, I started making a Python script and used a little bit of ChatGPT to help me finish it out. This was just going to help me automate the process of doing all 4 at once and setting the limits for like how far it should go down, how far it should go over for the air slide. And this just helped me, instead of having to manually hand animate everything, I just kind of used this script, and I had to adjust a few things and adjust the timing manually and a little bit of the locations, but this overall just really helped me to get things settled and easier. It took quite a bit to get working and had to adjust a lot of things, but if you run this script, it'll actually develop the keyframes for these objects, which is really cool. And it'll additionally, if you notice the machine's kind of shaking, I added that in kind of last minute, but it really helps sell the realism of the machine. And basically how that does it is it has this little, let me find it here. Let's see. Yeah, there's a little bit of there's a little bit of a bounce here where there's some bounce frames, and I have a amplitude for the bounce. It used to be a centimeter and that was way too much, and how many frames, and there's some other really cool things in this script. So I highly recommend doing something like that if you have a very mechanical design, especially because it's much easier to go in and redo things after, you know, things didn't look good. I could just rerun the script and change a couple of things, and it would clear all the keyframes and do that. So that was really cool. The other thing that helped me do this was this add-on called the Dynamic Parent add-on. Shout out to whoever made this, because this add-on is amazing. What this allows you to do is dynamically parent objects to each other. So when the grippers are in this position, it's not holding any blade, but when it goes down, it's using this add-on to parent the blades to the grabber base block based on the position. All you have to do is click on the 2 objects and then hit the create button. So now the blade's parented to it. It'll move over, push down, and then I can clear the parent, and then the object will stay where it is. And I can actually add a parent to the carriage right after, which is really cool, because now I don't have to hand animate exactly where the position is. They'll you still have the vibrations from the machine as well, which is really cool. And overall, it's a great add-on. I actually discovered this months ago. I think it's around September when we were working on CDR, and the design looked like this, which is crazy to look at because it's nothing like how the machine looks now. But you can see this was just like a brief conceptual overview of what our early designs looked like, and I wanted to kind of show that off in CDR. And I only did it for one blade here, but it worked really well to just show off the concept of what we were looking for back when we were in the conveyor belt days. So I ended up doing this for, you know, all 4 magazines, and then there were some other animations in the video with like the door opening and the magazines sliding out, the blades going in, and I basically did the same thing. I didn't use a script for that. I kind of hand animated it. I parented things together that, you know, move in groups like I did with the grabber block, and eventually just went through and did all that. I used some array modifiers for the blades. There's a lot of them, so it made sense to have a modifier here where you can put how many blades you want for each, and for the ones that actually get picked up, those aren't arrayed, they have to be separate objects, so they're kind of on their own there. And then I also synced that with the motion of the lead screw here, so if you watch the lead screw as it goes up, I did a hand animation of that as well. But what's cool about this is if I go into the constraints tab, I think I parented to this one. Let's see. Which one is it? It might be this. Yeah, so if you go into the Constraints tab, I actually copied over the rotation from this lead screw to the location of this plate. So whenever I spin this, or whenever I spin one of these things, I forget which one it is exactly. I'm kind of stuck in Parent City here. There's so many different objects. There's about 1,500 parts on this machine. So let me find it real quick. I think it's, let's see here. It should be on the magazines. Yeah, so this guy. Okay, it should have been this one, but if I select the hierarchy, I rotate. Oh, it's not doing it because I guess it's keyframed, but basically whenever this thing spins, it'll realize that it should move, you know, up and in. Oh, that's what it is. There it is. Okay, so the plate. So basically when I move the plate up and down in the Z direction, it'll automatically move the lead screw based on the pitch. It's an 8mm lead, so it'll automatically do that. And all I have to do is adjust this height, which is really easy to do and pretty easy to animate. Another thing that I thought was really cool about our video was that the machine sounds are actually synced up with the animation in the timeline here. So if you look at this waveform right here, these are all the machine sounds. And in order to sync it properly with the animation, because things are slightly different speeds than what they are in real life, I individually recorded each of the sounds of the machine with my phone. So I just turned on a cylinder or turned on the motor and got the sound of it. And I got this cool audio track list of the different sounds. So like these are the grabbers. I forget what these are. What I call it? Placing the blades. These are the grabbers, the air slide. And they're different sounds based on what part of the cycle the machine is in. So then that was really cool because I was able to add that to the machine sounds and make it sound really cool. I also added some other sound effects, some camera zoom. So like this one, for example, will be there for kind of the reveal of the machine. Same for this one. And there's one at the end.
Key requirements included holding.
Something else someone was asking me about was the kind of intro screen here. I actually did this in Canva, which is something I haven't done before. They have not a very powerful, I would say, but a very good looking kind of video editing or text editing software now. So I thought I'd kind of show that off too. So the Canva animation thing looks like this, and basically all the text kind of rises up in. So if I click on one of these, hit the animate button, it'll show you the text here, and it's really easy to just add in that little extra effect that just kind of made the title screen a little more lively, which I really enjoyed, and it looks kind of futuristic with it all popping in like that. For the rest of the video, I was pretty happy with the way everything else turned out. A lot of these videos were just videos we took on our phones throughout the design process, so like this was purely just for testing, and we have hundreds of videos and pictures of random things we did. For all the end videos, I used a nice camera for this. I used a Panasonic Lumix G85, which was really nice. This one was with the kit lens that came with the camera, and then for some of the other shots, like this one, I used a 25mm f1.8 lens, which gave this a really nice look to it, which I'm pretty proud of. Especially like this shot, I thought this looked really nice for the machine, and again, I think it just looks really nice, especially showing off our nice wire management that we ended up doing. So I think that's it. So definitely make sure to check out the other tutorials I'll have in the description of how to do something like this, and be sure to check out the original video of what I'm talking about, this full 3-minute thing, because I think it's a really great video and definitely deserves second place.